Okay, first off we're going to create a NURBS primitive plane, and we're going to create that so it's actually facing in the X direction with a width of 10, a length of 10, and you can set your U patches and V patches to 10 as well. Hit create. Next we just select the object, we'll delete history and center the pivot point. Select our geometry, then we want to go to the blast code UI window. And we'll go to new control surface, select our control surface and the control target layers. We want to create a locator explosive, we'll connect that through to our geometry. Then we'll open up our explosive in the attribute editor. And we'll turn off the deform flag, turn on pressure and turn cracks on. We'll change our magnitude about 1 or 2, our size to about 0.2 and our velocity to 100, our start frame to 1. And we want to turn on the use origin flag and change the origin to -200 along the x-axis. Next we want to translate our locator explosive about 13 units in the Y direction and set a keyframe at frame 1. Then we'll shift the frame 25 and we'll set a keyframe with the Y translation to about 0. And that just sort of gets the movement of the bomb locator down from top to bottom. Next we want to convert our geometry to a slab, and we'll just adjust the settings for the slab there. Turn off all target visibility in the blast code UI window. I've just hardened all the edges. So we bring up our slab in the attribute editor. We're using a simple mesh type. We'll lower the mesh thickness. I'm going to change the texture thickness here, but it doesn't really matter too much at this point in time. And we're also going to be using a fracture file. Now the fracture file is something I've just created in Photoshop fairly quickly. I personally think that if you play around a bit more with the actual crack, you could define it better, having more debris come off the main slab along the middle area more so than around the edges or in big chunks. Okay, so we've got our fracture file there. Next we're going to change the fracture threshold to about 0.604. Once we've done that, we'll open up the simple mesh attributes, turn on the cracks flag, and we'll adjust the crack threshold to about 0.676 and the upper amount to 0.766 and the crack lower amount to 0.270. We'll go to our primary debris attributes and we're changing the debris tensile option to pressure and the debris trajectory option to pressure delta. We're going to lower the debris tensile so the pieces actually drop off a lot faster, and we'll also lower the debris damping for the same reason. Next we'll just play around with the settings of the inherent motion, the debris random rotation, the debris random trajectory, and debris random velocity. Open up our secondary debris attributes tab, and we're just going to set the secondary snap amount to about 3 or 5. Just adding that extra visual eye candy here, and I'm just going to adjust some of the settings for the sizing of the secondary debris there. So the secondary debris length goes to 1.712, the secondary debris width goes to 0.721, and secondary debris scale min to 0.028, and secondary debris scale max to 0.109. Secondary debris random position to 0.5 and secondary debris damping to 0.109, and we're just going to change the secondary debris random rotation and trajectory once again, and also the velocity at the bottom there. Next we want to create a basic field there. We'll create gravity, we'll go to BC UI, open up particle tab, we'll select our particles, select the gravity field and go attach field, and we'll just play the simulation through to make sure that we're actually getting something happening. Next I'm just going to select all the secondary debris etc. and basically add hard edges to that as well. Let's rewind the simulation. We're going to open up our explosive again, and we're probably just going to change the magnitude just a little bit higher so we get some more pieces coming off the centre of the slab. Once again, this will be determined by your actual fracture map file. Now I've just gone to the damage object and changed the playback start frame to 1. For our next step we're going to create a polyplane for the floor, and we'll just change the width and height on that to about 10 or 50 and leave the subdivisions width and height to 10, and we'll translate that in along Y down about -0.05. Next we'll select our floor object and we'll open up the blast code main window, go to the particle tab, select new collision, select the particle and the floor object and go attach collision, and next we'll select our floor object and convert that to a passive rigid body, and we're just going to lower the bounciness to about 0.05, increase the damping to 1, and maybe make the static and dynamic friction to about 0.3 or 0.35, and also obviously switch the collision layer to -1, which doesn't necessarily need to be done right now, it can be done later on. However, at this point you may end up with some sort of errors occurring with the dynamic simulation, and when that happens it's just as quick to restart Maya and play it through again. And we're just checking the simulation to make sure we're getting collisions there. You can see the effect of the damping. Okay, we're just going to make some minor adjustments to the actual locator explosive here. I've increased the size to make sure the right amount of pieces are coming off the wall there. Okay, now that all the pieces have broken off, what we want to do is select the object, open up the blast code main window UI, select the control surface and the layer, and go update rigid bodies. Now instead of using particles, all the debris is going to be using the actual rigid body simulation. And we'll just connect those through to the gravity. And we'll run the simulation through the first time, and if you watch this, you'll notice that the secondary debris, etc., starts behaving quite erratically. However, if you let it play through right to the end and then play it through a second time, you'll see that they actually behave a lot more correct. If you're still getting problems, I suggest restarting Maya again. Okay, next we want to open up the GeoConnector, and we'll just change the tessellation factor to 400, the resilience to about 0.01, and leave friction to 0.6, just on the floor object. And we'll just make some minor adjustments to the rigid solver as well, like lowering the step size about 0.002, and everything else there can pretty much stay the same. And we'll just run through the simulation again. A lot of the time you will get some kind of rigid body interpenetration, however you can always cover this kind of thing up with particles and other effects or other geometry. Okay, what I've done here is change a few settings, like on the floor object I've changed or raised the static and dynamic friction up to about 0.5, and on the locator explosive I've actually increased the magnitude and the size and lowered the velocity to about 70. I've changed my frame scale maximum to 160, and as you can see here, everything's sort of working okay at this point in time. Okay, probably the next thing we want to do is create some VS Code data, so we'll just set our data path here and work out where we're going to put the data file. Just create a new folder, tutorial cracking wall, that will do. We go set blast handler path. Okay, we select our control source, then we hit record, and then we just hit play. And we'll basically let the simulation run through to the very end. And this is recording everything to a cache file. The obvious benefits to being able to do this are the chance of being able to actually run through and scrub through the timeline and see everything update in real time, rather than play the simulation through each time. And this step must be done before you can add actual secondary particle effects like smoke and dust and fire and stuff. Okay, once it gets to the end, hit the control surface, click off under record mode, then you can go and basically hit play, and that's pretty much it. You'll notice the simulation will run heaps quicker, and then you can also scrub through the timeline. Okay, what I've done here is just bring in some simple geometry, add some basic lighting, and here's the rendered simulation as it came out. Now this sort of test would be a good starting point for if you were wanting to pull some cables or wires through a plastered wall, or if you had some sort of pole or something that needed to fall through a wall, you could actually set that up. You could even parent the bomb locator to some kind of dynamic object and use that as the actual motion of the bomb locator.